Okay, today's regional report will be structured into two sections. We'll hear a brief overview from each guest, and then we'll get into some Q&A. Today we're hearing from four phenomenal panelists. I'll quickly introduce them. Tony Camp is the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning at Phoenix Union. Julie Fink, Vice President of Human Resources, University of Phoenix. Mary Foote, Managing Director at Pipeline AZ, and Darcy Renfro, Chief Workforce and Economic Development Officer, Maricopa Community Colleges. And we're going to start with Tony. Tony is the Executive Director, as I mentioned, for Teaching and Learning at Phoenix Union, where he oversees curriculum, instruction, and professional development and special education services. Now, prior to this role, serving as the Director of Portfolio Management, a new department focusing on developing a stronger portfolio of schools, career academies, and college pathways. He has been a Phoenix Union administrator in various capacities since 2005. And Tony, thank you for joining us this morning. And we'll kick it over to you. I understand you have some slides to present to us.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sperling. Thank you very much for that introduction. I am happy to share the work that Phoenix Union has been doing before and during this pandemic in order to keep our mission moving forward of preparing students for success in college, career, and life. Phoenix Union has been doing some amazing things around developing a strong portfolio of schools, like you mentioned, aligning college and career offerings with the demand of the future and providing quality seats for our students. Obviously, COVID-19 has made educational practices much more difficult, but we have been successful in keeping students connected to their learning as a result. I'll briefly provide everyone with a glance at what our district has done to provide students we serve with opportunities to go places and do things that matter. Next slide, please. Our efforts to provide relevant educational pathways is deeply ingrained in our strategic plan in order to meet the unique and complex need of all of our learners, challenge and disrupt old educational paradigms, and create a new educational model. Phoenix Union has been intentional in offering new and/or redesigned school models to meet the diverse needs of our students. Some examples of recent accomplishments is the design and opening of Phoenix Coding Academy in 2016 with a unique instructional model around project-based learning and industrial technologies pathways, such as networking, cybersecurity, and software development. I'll share a little bit more about how we redesigned one of our comprehensive campuses, South Mountain, in 2018 to academies at South, intentionally creating designated pathways or majors. We also established our district's first AOI school, Arizona Online Instruction School, which quickly became more relevant in these times. Even pre-COVID, students we serve have needed a school experience that is versatile and can be accessed in a variety of ways. Our next endeavor to begin, one of our newest school experiences is PXU City, and you'll hear more about that in the weeks and months to come. Next slide, please. Many of our district staff, some of our school board members, and business and industry partners participated in a comprehensive study of the Academy's model in Nashville, Tennessee. District and school leaders also participated in a recent NCAC conference where learning opportunities took place with other districts around the country. We then redesigned South Mountain High School, a comprehensive school in South Phoenix, with their current magnet and CTE programs. We wanted those programs to have more alignment to actual identified or chosen pathways, rather than just having a plethora of classes that students could take. Sort of that intentionality similar to college degrees and career pathways. After that initial design of career academies, you see the four there, we further align those pathways to combine two together and further support that freshman year experience. Statistics show that the transition from middle to high school is very difficult for students. The administrative redesign took place as well, where each academy had an assigned administrator. Most importantly, our connection to the businesses, and this is the exciting part that I have to speak about. We began our relationship with the Greater Phoenix Chamber Foundation. Next slide, please. This partnership developed into the birth of Elevate Ed AZ, a program initiated with the Greater Phoenix Chamber Foundation and PXU. Partnership meetings and stakeholder listening sessions took place. They joined us when we visited the academies of Nashville in November of 2019. And in January of that next year, we set off on an expedition to change the way schools prepare students for success. And we are combining our efforts to increase high school engagement, graduation rates, and connections to post-secondary and workforce interactions. With the connections to business and industry, students at the academies at South, Phoenix Coding Academy, and eventually other schools will benefit from aligned enhancement to the industry opportunities and degrees that we're connecting to. And for my last slide, a couple of details about the efforts that were taking place. We've recently hired 2 college and career coaches, one at the academies at South and one at PCA, or Coding Academy. And they serve as liaisons between industry career clusters and our students. We started these positions in February, and then COVID hit in March, but it did not stop our efforts as a district. Our partnership continued, and these career coaches quickly pivoted due to the student and staff being virtual. They developed virtual externships for teachers. We had 20 teachers and 15 employers participate in July. The results were so positive in October, we had 60 teachers and 23 employers participate and provided relevant and accurate alignment. Virtual college and career panels also took place. An example of this is connecting the Mayo Clinic to Phoenix Coding Academy and our academies at South around high-paid careers such as biomedical equipment technician, and students never knew this profession ever existed. So as I close my short segment here, the 3 lessons that we've learned in these partnerships is as far as alignment. You know, our programs are somewhat misinformed of the true alignment of industry demand. So we're hopeful that that will continue to grow. Technology changes so fast, and the communication waterfall has to be fast as well. Career awareness. I gave the example earlier about Mayo Clinic and how our students just don't know certain careers exist. With that silver tsunami of industries that are in high need of skilled and prepared applicants. And the last one about work-based learning is what surfaced is the tremendous need to offer more internship opportunities to students. We need more connections willing to expose our great kids at PXU to careers that exist out there. To engage more, sponsor additional opportunities, hackathons, work experience courses. The industry folks that have partnered with us so far are very excited about continuing that work with us. Right alongside that work for workforce development, PXU has also embraced the need to define and develop a strong PXU learner, ready for college, career, and life. Industry, colleges, parents, and students and teachers collaborated to identify what attributes we would like our learners to look like when they leave us. And industry and business communities provided feedback as well, which really helped us guide that. Overall, Phoenix Union has been making great strides around workforce development, and our journey will continue during and post-COVID. Feel free to connect with us at pxu.org or even look up Elevate at AZ. Actually, that should say elevateataz.com. I apologize for that, but I'll answer any questions when we get done. Thank you very much, Mr. Sperling.
All right, Tony, thank you for that presentation. And again, there is the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen there. So if you have questions for Tony, we will try to get some Q&A at the end of today's presentation. Okay, let's bring Darcy into the conversation now. Darcy is the Chief Workforce and Economic Development Officer at the Maricopa County Community College District. In addition to her strategic advising duties, she helps to lead the Maricopa transformation to fundamentally transform the student experience to meet the education and employment needs of the community. Her extensive background also includes a role as policy advisor to Governor Napolitano for economic development and higher education. Darcy, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I think we have your presentation queued up and ready to go.
Right. Thank you so much. Good morning. I'm happy to be here today. You can hear me, correct? Because my box is not lighting up.
You sound great.
Sure.
Yep.
All right. Terrific. Thank you. You're right. We've been on Zoom for 8 months, and we're having all of a sudden Zoom
relapse. Yeah.
Zoom relapse. There you go. So thank you for that. Not unlike the Phoenix Union High School District, we are working very hard to align with industry. And what I'm going to talk about today are a couple of examples of our industry partnerships that we think are moving us more toward what the market needs in the future of workspace, but also just practical opportunities for individuals who are either currently employed and looking to upskill, or those that have found themselves unemployed and are looking to reskill, and trying to align the programs we offer with the skills that individuals already sort of obtained while in the workplace, to apply them in job areas where openings and opportunities are beginning to dwindle, and map those against opportunities that are going to continue to grow even post-COVID in industry sectors like IT, healthcare, cybersecurity, and advanced manufacturing. So if you go to the next slide. As a general matter, we are working within our Maricopa Corporate College and in the workforce division that we created recently. A little backstory: when I took this job, it'll be 4 years in January, was focused around really strategy, transformation, also government affairs, and a lot of different things. And one of those was the opportunity as the chief of staff to the chancellor to meet with companies and talk to companies. And we heard a lot of things about what we were missing the boat on. And one of those is just the scattered nature of our 10 community colleges that are across the entire valley, and them connecting and coordinating around engaging with employers, engaging with school districts, etc. So we created a new division that I lead, and within that division we have our corporate college as well as our workforce office. And we have a huge opportunity to focus on the reskill and upskill job training. This slide here shows you one of the campaigns that MCOR Corporate College has been working on and diligently pushing for individuals who are looking to get that upskill or reskill, and that they can do it all online from the comfort of their own home or their workplace. We also have quite a great service to companies that want to help upskill their existing employees, and that they can come to us and we will help provide concierge service to those companies so that they can get their employees into programs across Maricopa and get them upskilled effectively, and we'll help them access federal job credit, federal tax credits, and other things to make that very affordable for the employer. Next slide, please. So you can see here we have a lot of 10 colleges, all our college logos are up there. This is Make It Happen as the General Maricopa Community College campaign right now that we issued about a year ago. And this just gives you a flavor of some of the areas where in particular we're looking for those individuals through the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act who are out of job and need to reskill dislocated workers, and they can find programs across all 10 colleges as well as the corporate college in those sectors mentioned below. So next slide, please. I want to highlight two important industry partnerships. Us, like Phoenix Union, we have been really trying to engage employers more directly because those work-based experiences are important, but also really important are the skills and identification of the skills. Like, what are you really looking for as an employer? And how do you do that in an age of such change? Not just COVID, but really the automation of a lot of the things that, a lot of jobs that exist today, and how to move to the next level. Next slide, please. So this was a project that we've been working on with Intel. Intel was looking at, we were looking at, and Intel was looking at, what is the real future of work? And what is going to be the disruption? COVID being one of those, right? The gig economy, remote work, all these things have pushed us so much more quickly into this phase of disruption than I think any of us anticipated. For education providers, we had to quickly, in Maricopa, we had to quickly figure out how to get 22,000 courses online in virtual and hybrid formats. For the workforce, we're looking at 50% of the work tasks that are being performed today will be automated. And that's a lot of jobs across the country that are going to be displaced as a result of that automation. So we identified the opportunity, the demand gap, and some of the issues that we needed to focus on to try to help people be more prepared, whether they have a job or they find themselves out of a job, for this next phase of the economy. Next slide, please. So Intel came to us, it would have been August of 19, and said, look, we have this big goal to make technology really accessible and close the digital divide and access to technology globally. And we have this program we've been testing out in Singapore on artificial intelligence and machine learning. And we would love to work with you, community college, in helping us close this. So as part of their global 2030 goals, they came to Maricopa because they wanted to figure out how we could move this artificial intelligence curriculum into the United States, and they came to Maricopa to do that. A little more, next slide, on AI and why it's important, and then I'll explain why they came to the community colleges and why Arizona is such a key player for Intel. Obviously, they have a massive production facility in the East Valley, but more importantly, AI really requires the data and it requires individual human mind to associate with machines and data. And if you only have certain kinds of people or only certain populations informing that translation of the human mind into machine learning, you're only going to get a portion of what you need. And so diversity is a hugely important component of building something out that requires artificial intelligence that you can apply into machine learning, and then deeper learning of multi-layered networks that take all kinds of data and from all kinds of sectors and pulls it together into this automated artificial intelligence world. Next slide, please. One of the interesting things we have to talk about when we talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning is it's a skills-focused curriculum. And many companies, particularly in this tech sector and semiconductor, advanced manufacturing, are really looking for specific skills, not necessarily something that says I got a degree in as a proxy for knowing some form of skill. This is really about skills that underpin a huge number of occupations. So normally, if you say I'm going to have a business, I'm going to get an allied health degree, or let's say you're going to get a phlebotomy degree. You're going to get somebody who has a phlebotomy certificate, and then you're going to hire them as a phlebotomist and maybe add some different skills. Artificial intelligence supports a number of occupations, and it doesn't fit nicely into a single sector. So this slide here just demonstrates some of those different kinds of occupations where this Intel AI and machine learning curriculum is going to be foundational to a large number of jobs, not just those in the tech sector. So next slide, please. This really, I hit on these points earlier, so I'll just say, artificial intelligence, machine learning requires a democratization of data, diversity of inputs, and they came, next slide, to Maricopa because we had diversity in community colleges. The majority of our students are Latinx, and over half are first-time college goers. So those perspectives are going to be super important as you learn and function within AI. AI is, you're creating it while you're learning it, and those diversity viewpoints are going to be super important. Intel was very committed and wanted access to these programs to a broad population, and because of the size of Maricopa's system, we have those 10 colleges and 200,000 students. They could get a pretty broad range of access points to the program. And affordability, we are still $85 a credit hour, which really amounts to a $5,000 associate's degree and a $2,500 year of learning if you took 15 credit hours like a standard student would. Most of these programs, AI included, are set up right now in that standard degree track or transfer track. What we're trying to do more of is break those down into individual skill certifications, micro certs, so that as you're moving through, even in the AI program, you learn a particular skill like Python. You're able to get some kind of credential that says, a micro credential says this person knows Python. So they could take that micro credential and potentially move into, get hired by a company who needs that particular skill. And so a big part of what we're doing is testing this AI program that's currently available to students now. We launched in the fall of this semester, but also break those down into module learning units, micro credentials that give something an employability something that they can take with them to a job interview and say, I know how to do this, this, and this. And so those were all the reasons why Maricopa and Intel were a good match for this program. I hasten to say this, but I will say it. This was a 3rd grade curriculum initially in Singapore. They're moving it into a post-secondary curriculum, made some adaptations, but it tells you something about where Singapore is. But it also tells us it's a great opportunity to push some of these skills, some of these micro-credentials down to our partners at Phoenix Union High School District, for example, who would want to start learning. Tech companies in particular, the Apples, the Amazons, the Intels are really looking for that early career exploration even starting in 8th grade and through high school, hugely important to them. And so they have been great partners in helping us create dual enrollment opportunities for students. They can get college credits and they can start exploring careers. So very quickly, the last set program, and I'm like talking so fast that I'm sure much of this is getting lost. So I'm going to put my contact info in the chat. So if somebody wants to contact me directly about any of these things to talk about it further, I'd be happy to do that. So the next slide is specialty nursing. This is just another example where the employers that are part of the Greater Phoenix Chambers Foundation's Healthcare Collaborative had been meeting for several years to try to define a core set of skills and needs that they needed, skills and needs that they were sure they lacked within their big hospital networks. And I'll say the big hospital networks are at the table. And what they said is, look, we need more specialty nursing. So we came together with the chamber, with our alumni, our nurses, our faculty, and the Phoenix Chamber companies, and developed a set of specialty nursing programs that a nurse, an existing nurse, or somebody who's out of the field and wants to re-career into nursing could get through hands-on affordable opportunity in a very short micro certification way. So next slide. So we focused on 3 components to putting that program together. A concierge service, which is we go to a Banner or a Brazo or an Honor Health and we say, we would like to enroll, do you have nurses that you want to upskill and get them into the system, or get them specialized so they can be valuable to you. We made it affordable. As I mentioned, affordability and access is a hallmark of community colleges, and then gave those who were not employed in nursing or potentially graduates of our nursing programs and got them into a path toward employment, and said to them, not only will we help you get this specialty cert, we'll also introduce you to some of the companies that are hiring and need those nurses in those specialty areas. So we combined sort of end-to-end employers at the beginning of the process and helping us identify the skills. We create the program to meet those skills, and then we connect the job seeker or the student to the employer at the end of that experience. So these are 2 examples of what we're trying to do much more large scale across a number of sectors and spaces throughout Maricopa to really focus on reskilling and upskilling. What we need are continued engagement by employers who are willing to put some energy, not necessarily in identifying the skills or creating the programs. We can do that, but to say, look, we'll be there for your students at the beginning and the end. We want them to get to know us. We want to have an opportunity to interview them at the end, and it helps us attract more students. They want to know that they've got an end-to-end solution for themselves, and it's probably a great segue to Pipeline AZ, because we're working right now to put that all in a virtual space where Mary will talk about for career exploration all the way through to employment, and a virtual tool that is going to help us do that. So Darcy, that is the end.
Yes, thank you so much. And as you mentioned, we mentioned earlier, we are recording this. So if anybody wants to go back and review any of this, you have plenty of time to do that. We will bring Mary in just a few moments, but we want to kick it over to Julie now. Julie is the Vice President of Human Resources for the University of Phoenix, where she provides consulting services in all areas of talent, performance management, compensation, and organization design. She's also the chairman of the University Diversity and Inclusion Council. A native of Phoenix, Julie began her career at Arizona Public Service and has worked in various industries, including public transportation, high technology, healthcare, and business process outsourcing. Julie, thank you for being here with us this morning. I know you have a presentation as well, and we'll kick it over to you.
Right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. And, it's really interesting how we are all preparing the workforce of tomorrow. We're starting with the high schoolers, moving on to the community college, and obviously here at the University of Phoenix. So we at UOP, we have the honor and the challenge, really, of preparing the workforce for tomorrow. And sometimes it's not necessarily what they know that they even need. And I'm going to talk about what we do for our own internal employees. But first, just the next slide, just a high-level overview of who we are. We were founded in 1976, which seems like an absolute lifetime ago. We are predominantly probably known as an online institution. However, we have campuses all over the country. Now they're closed right now, but we do have students on ground campuses everywhere from Western Washington to Jersey City, down to Florida, whole bunch of locations in California and all the states in between. We have about roughly about 80,000 students right now. Very, very diverse workforce, over 65% are female, 72% plus are employed. Almost 70% of them have dependents at home. And almost 70% of our students are over 30 years of age. And our faculty, we use a practitioner model. And so what that means is we have people who actually do this work or have done this work as part of their career. They are the ones that actually teach our students. And we have about 3,400 staff and about 4,500 of these faculty. So the next slide, like I said, I'm going to talk about how we prepare our workforce for the future, the University of Phoenix workforce. And I think, we have a traditional learning and development organization. We not only do we have to deal with business as usual training, meaning how do we train our enrollment representatives when they're hired? How do we train them to talk to potential students? How do we train our academic counselors to help our students deal with the challenges that they deal with and how to progress through their educational journey? So not only that, we kind of call that as business as usual, but we've got, a variety of different ways that we reach out to our existing employees. We have formal courses, your typical traditional courses that used to be, put your backside in a seat, which obviously now we all have to turn into virtual learning. So our formal courses are things like giving and receiving feedback, developing a growth mindset, all of those typical kinds of things. We also have learning on demand. We use LinkedIn Learning. And so we use that. We've got really good participation in that. We also have developed more of monthly, what we call recommended short burst learning courses. So instead of where you'll sit there for 3 hours or 4 hours or all day, which nobody can do anymore, we have a lot of short burst learning courses that we have customized to create what we call a learning path. So if you want to know more about digital transformation, you can take these 3 LinkedIn Learning courses. You can read this article and you can watch this YouTube video on something or another. So we create customized learning paths for individuals as well. What we also have is the social learning opportunities. What we found is now that everyone is remote, the need to be more social and connect with people is much more important every day. So I'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing in that area. And then we also have our leadership development section. We call it LEAD. And in LEAD, that's our standard leadership development types of programs. We have a new leader welcome activity and some information and some training that we do with that. We have your standard leadership development courses, foundations of leadership, developing a growth mindset, coaching for accelerated performance, those kinds of things. And we just recently rolled out 12 weeks to virtual leadership. And that's just a variety of things as to how do we become a virtual leader? Because it's very different than being in the office leader. And just yesterday, we announced something, we announced something called the Leader Learning Cafe. And what that is we encourage our leaders to go out to view a LinkedIn Learning course, which is about anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. And then we get together as a group of leaders. You can sign up for it. And then we just talk about what that means, what that experience is. Those groups are facilitated by some of our VPs, and they talk about their experiences, because experiential learning is so much more valuable than just listening to a YouTube video or a LinkedIn learning course. And it gives our leaders the opportunity to talk about lots of different things. So, so then on the next slide, I think we all know March happened. And we had some leaders currently, predominantly our workforce is here in Phoenix, obviously. So we had some leaders who had people that work from home occasionally, 1 or 2 days a week, primarily on the professional side. And so that wasn't really necessarily a big deal. But then when everybody went out, we had some immediate needs that our learning and development organization had to address, and they did a fabulous job of doing that. And so they put together real quickly some very good, again, short burst learning courses of how do you lead remote employees. It's very, very different, as I said. And not only that, but how are you as an employee an effective remote worker? Because a lot of employees, you know, like I said, they may have, or some of them may have worked occasionally at home, but how do you do it 5 days a week, every single week? So they put together, you know, a whole bunch of different resources for not only leaders, but employees on how to do that. Some of that was off the shelf. Some of it was in our learning catalog. Again, we put together, you know, these are like what I referred to as our learning paths. And, you know, so some of it was off the shelf in our learning catalog, and then some of it was also custom created as well. So the next slide, really what have we learned since March? We've learned, you know, a whole bunch of things. You know, the job of a leader has gotten really hard, especially remotely now. Learning needs and wants have grown exponentially, and how we deliver that has definitely changed. Where do we need more training for people? And again, it may not be something that employees recognize they need, or that leaders recognize that they need. When I talked a little bit earlier about the social aspects of it, we get more participation in activities that we do where people can come together, and they miss those networking opportunities. They meet new people, but it also means we need some smaller class sizes too. We can no longer have a class of 30 people sitting in a room. Those need to be about 10 to 12 to 15 to really effectively facilitate those those courses and that information. And it's designed to be engaging, interactive, and helps connect with our learners a whole lot more. So the next slide is really an example of what we've done in terms of on the employee development side. And that was one of the boxes on the previous slide. So we launched a new thing called My Development. And it's a quarterly schedule of things that employees can do. And it's a variety of things. So there's themed quarterly topics, whatever those may be. There's a course of the month. For recommendation, and you know, just a variety of these other things here. And what we found is when you lay things out for employees, they will more likely follow them, because you know, those of you that use LinkedIn Learning, there's 8,000 different courses in there. Well, what do I take? What should I take? Nobody can plow through that catalog to understand what it is that they need. But if we can put it in front of them, we get very, very good participation. So one of the things I want to talk about is LinkedIn Live Course Club. What that is we send it out to employees and say, you can take this LinkedIn course, and then come at this particular time. People can sign up, and you just have a discussion about it. And again, it's led by one of our senior leaders. But this is a senior leader and employee discussion versus the other one I talked about earlier, which was leaders and leaders. And it gives employees the opportunity to interact with leaders. It goes both ways. and just talk about the things that they learned, kind of like a book club, if you will, about particular learning activities. We use Yammer as our social communication. So we have created a Yammer page about my development. We use that for announcing our programs, talking about them a little bit more. Employees and leaders can interact through that more social connection as well. And then one of the other interesting things we do is called Lunchtime Mindfulness. And it's a drop-in thing. Again, it's every Friday from noon to 1. And the first 15 minutes is really all about kind of relaxation, getting your mind out of all the clutter and the noise that's going on, to kind of de-stress a little bit at the end of the week, to helping leaders and employees become more mindful and present versus all of the noise that we're getting from all over the place. And that's well attended as well. We probably get maybe 15 people attending each time, maybe a little bit more. But again, we want to keep that to a small group so that we can really interact well with with the participants. And then my last slide is really other things that we have done, and all of this is in response to not only the current health crisis that we're all under, and everybody working from home, and all of the stress that people deal with their, how do I handle my kids in school, in the other room, the dog's barking, the mailman's coming, Amazon is delivering everything to my front door. How do we deal with all of that? So, one of the things that we also pride ourselves with at the university is our employee engagement. And we had a pretty robust employee engagement strategy, but it was focused on events. And events on our campuses, at our physical facilities. Well, that has all changed as well. So what are we doing now to continue to drive employee engagement and recognition and appreciation? We like to appreciate our employees for coming to work for us every day. So, one of the things that we recently introduced was a new 3 years of service celebration. And what we found in looking at our data was at about the 3-year point, employees are thinking, okay, what's next? What am I going to do? Do I want to stay here? That's kind of like the breaking point, or the tipping point, I should say. So what we did was we invited people with these 3 years of service to an event. And we put our senior leadership in that event. And we invited everybody, around the table. And they just got to sit and chat, and we talked about what about your career? What do you want to do? How can we help you do that? Those kind of things. And it gives us a chance to jump in and re-evangelize why they should be working here with us. Get the individuals committed to the organization, get them excited about some developmental opportunities that they may not have been aware of. And just those kinds of things. And we really reached out and touched them as you're special to us, and we want you to know that. One of the other things that we do is we have weekly pop-ups that when you sign into your computer, this is what you'll see. Things like this pop up. They're just weekly nudges about leadership, and they go to all employees. So some of them, it's about have you talked to your boss recently about your career goals, and it gives you some ideas about it. So those pop up weekly, and those are also very well received. So, like I said earlier, we're all preparing the workforce for the future, and it's really interesting to see, as I said in the beginning, how we've done, what Phoenix Union is doing, what the community colleges are doing, because the workforce of the future looks very different than the workforce that we are currently in right now today, and we're all doing our part to get everybody ready for that.
All right, Julie, thank you for that presentation and a perfect segue into Mary now. Mary is an economic development professional with experience in workforce, foreign direct investment, site selection, and incentives. She currently leads strategy for the Partnership for Economic Innovation and is the managing director of Pipeline AZ, that is a leading community resource platform for career exploration, job seekers, and employers. She also serves as the chair of jobs and economic impact for Valley Leadership and is on the board of the nonprofit Board Developer Foundation. So, Mary, we've worked our way up here, and now we give the floor to you to talk about everything that you're seeing and get your perspective.
Okay, and just check, you can hear me okay?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, excellent. Okay, so I'll just start with a little bit of the history of Pipeline AZ. So Pipeline AZ is an initiative under a larger organization called the Partnership for Economic Innovation, which has some of its original ties to GPEC. So it was about 5 years ago that the Brookings Institution out of DC came to GPEC and said, okay, you're the metropolitan leader in economic development. We're looking to go to some of the major metros and help them create a metropolitan business plan and identify some of the key priorities to help, drive forward the innovation economies we know we need to fuel the economic growth of the country. And they came to a couple of different conclusions for the Phoenix metro area. One was that we needed to greatly increase the number of exports we have, which is why we have MPEXA, which is the Metropolitan Phoenix Export Association. We also needed to spend more time and investment in applied research centers. So we have those under PEI around wearable technologies and blockchain. And then another really key finding was you guys need to really invest more in workforce. Part of that is, a lot of what we're seeing as future industry is going to be dependent on world-class engineers. So you're going to need to put in a lot of money in increasing the capacity of your engineering schools, especially at ASU. But the other thing they identified with workforce is just that we're not as connected a workforce as we should be. And there are some really great findings that we found when we started looking at workforce. Kind of go back to what Darcy mentioned earlier, which is that we know that in the future, everything's based around skills, not the jobs you've had, not the job title you're looking for. What are the skills that you have? Where do you want to go in your pathway? And what are the skills that are going to get you there? So I'll go to the next slide. So that leads us to Pipeline AZ. So Pipeline AZ is a platform. It's funded by the Maricopa the Maricopa County Industrial Development Authority. They gave us the funds. We licensed this product from developers that really have their eye on the future of skills and understanding what are the skills that are going to get us to the workforce of the future that we need for the jobs of tomorrow. And Pipeline is a platform. It is an end-to-end platform, which basically means that starting very early on, you can go on for career awareness, career exploration, even in middle school. What do I want to be? What are the things that I like to do? And what does that look like in terms of the pathways of where I want to be? And what are the skills that are going to get me there? So starting early on, you've got career awareness. Then that moves you into, your education, understanding, okay, what are the classes I should be taking? If I should be doing vocational education, what does that look like? And then adding those skills to a profile that you're developing early, and then going throughout that process all the way into post-secondary. Maybe you go to the community colleges, you add skills there, you get additional skills from work-based experiences like apprenticeships or internships. And then eventually all of those skills in your profile are going to match on the platform through a proprietary algorithm that we have. Those skills are going to match to job opportunities. And the job opportunities we have listed, we scrape all the job boards. We also have employers that are on there posting themselves, and their job descriptions are actually a set of skills. And so what we do is we match those skills to make sure that we're getting the best employees for the best opportunities, and also helping people understand where the skills gaps are. This is the job you want. What really are those skills that you should have to get there? And then once you have the job, your profile doesn't end with Pipeline AZ. You can turn off your profile. You don't have to make it open and available for employers to see. But eventually you can in the future, if you want to start identifying opportunities for upskilling and reskilling. We know that all of the careers of today and tomorrow are going to be about lifelong learning. So continuing to understand the skills that you need to progress in your career pathway. And then, again, continuing to match to opportunities. Next slide. So one of the ways that we get job seekers, students, educators, employers on the platform, we do this through a few different ways. And one of our most important groups are, workforce agencies, community benefit organizations. These are people who are really on the front lines helping job seekers understand, what are the resources available to them, financial, training, etc., to get where they want to be in their career pathway. So the great thing about Pipeline is it is free to every community benefit organization. They are able to have a unique dashboard for them where they can case manage all of the job seekers they support. They can see if they've completed their profile, if they've added the right skills, if they're applying for jobs. And this really allows them to keep track with a better interface, but also on the same platform, giving them access to the resources they need, and also looking through maybe some educational opportunities that might be available to them as well. And I will say, in addition to these, we've had a lot more on the workforce side as well. We're starting to see a huge increase in faith-based organizations. So we work with neighborhood ministries, for example. Especially during these times, we know that a lot of faith-based organizations are really being the front lines to help job seekers as well. So if you know of anybody who, in any of those types of organizations, please direct them to me, and I'm happy to help them understand how to use the platform so they can better serve the job seekers they're supporting. We do also have educators, or what we call supply partners, on the site as well, on the platform. So some of these we are more pilots. ASU, for example, we work with their digital apprenticeship program that's very specific to adding certain skills and then getting them to the jobs that they want to be through this apprenticeship program that they have. Once they have those skills, then the algorithm matches them to the appropriate opportunities. As Darcy mentioned, we've been working with her and her team, and I'll talk a little bit about that more in the next couple slides. But educators are incredibly important to the platform. They are able to have a lot of students come on, add the skills that they're gaining. Also, the other reason educators are very important to us is if we are doing career exploration for folks coming on, they want to know, okay, this is where I want to be. How do I get there? And we show them how to get there by giving them all of the resources they need that are Arizona-based resources. So all of these institutions and their programming are available, and their specific programming is tied to the pathways. So if you need to get to a certain place that you want to be, there's a certain job title that you want, you understand the skills that to get there. We've tied those occupations back to the specific programming available at these Arizona institutions. Next slide. So another way we've been bringing people onto the platform, since COVID, we've had great success with virtual hiring events. And we have another site called c19az.com, which isn't just about connecting job seekers and employers, but it also has a lot of resources available for COVID. But the virtual hiring events is something we've been doing in partnership with different cities. So City of Chandler, we did an event with them a few months ago. We had over 700 job seekers come on, some really great connections there. We work closely with Westmark. They have their own site, westmark.pipelineaz.com, for their West Valley pipeline strategy. And then we've got some upcoming events, first starting December 8th with the City of Tempe. We'll have more information on that soon. And really what happens is, employers come on board, they post their jobs, we understand the skills associated with those positions. Then we have the job seekers coming on, they do complete their profiles. Every single one of them coming through gets assigned a career coach that helps them complete those profiles, adding the skills that they need so that the system can do what it's made to do, which is that appropriate skills matching. Next slide. So I'll end with just a couple of key partnerships that we have that have been pretty interesting. And what I don't have on here is Arizona Tech Council. That's a recent, newer partnership that we have that might come up in some future questions that we have, I know, with the panel. But want to talk a little bit about the Arizona Department of Education. So we've been going through a series of workshops with them, really trying to better understand the current education and career pathway planning that students are doing, not just in high school, but all the way back to middle school, so that we can early on start identifying vocational education, apprenticeships, externships, work-based learning, and also just, of course, the coursework that they're going to need to get where they want to be. And how do we, get kids excited about that early on, especially knowing that the ratio of guidance counselors to students is not really ideally where we would like it to be. We do also have an education leadership group. They've been very busy. It's leaders in education from across the state, really mapping out the life cycle of a student in the state of Arizona, trying to understand when is industry coming in and intersecting with students. What are the tools and resources available, the technology available, really what are the gaps and the opportunities so that we can better help students throughout their journey get to the career pathways where we know they want to be. And then finally, we've been working closely with the Maricopa community colleges on a pilot, and they'll be transitioning over to using a white label version of Pipeline that's been developed specifically for the Maricopa Community College District. So beginning at the earliest stage, student coming in, they're able to do some career exploration, understand the pathways that are of interest to them, what's the coursework associated with that. And then as they're building skills through the education they're receiving and adding those to their profile, that's going to match them to work-based experiences, the internships, apprenticeships I've mentioned before. And then upon completion of their coursework, they're either going to be prepared to go into additional education if that's what makes sense for their pathway, or we'll be able to directly place them to current job opportunities based upon the skills they've developed throughout their time at the community colleges. Next slide. So finally, I will put my contact information in the chat as well. If anybody is interested in a demonstration of the platform, understanding how we can work more closely with educators, we can work more closely with you as employers. It is a platform that is free for employers to use. We can help post jobs, help you with your company page. We have just over 11,000 people using the site right now. About 15% of our population on the platform is actually veterans, so it is a great place to identify a veteran workforce, and that's because of our unique military skills translator. So if you put in your discharge code as a military veteran, it's automatically going to tell you what civilian skills are applicable and should be added to your profile. So great for hiring veterans, a lot of great information there. And again, I'll put my information, contact info in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me directly. Thank you.
All right, Mary, thank you so much. Great presentation. And we do just have some closing moments here for some final thoughts. And so, Tony, I'll bring you back into the conversation quickly here. And I guess I'll kind of pose a question to you because we've learned so much today. And one of the most popular questions in the pre-submitted Q&A was, what skills should the future workforce focus on most? And, Darcy touched on this, where 50% of the jobs will be automated. Mary just said everything will be based on skills. And I really liked what what Julie was saying about moving that into growth mindsets and trying to develop stuff around mindfulness and virtual leadership. And especially in these times, you look at that concept and you go, okay, before I enter the workforce or before I reset myself, if I did lose a job in hospitality, I need to have a growth mindset. I need to have that sort of that mindfulness approach to things. So is it beginning at your level when you're educating the younger students moving into the workforce or moving into furthering their education? Are they learning skills like that?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Mr. Sperling. I think that goes back to our development of a PXU learner profile, and we had 6 characteristics, the growth mindset we are instilling with our teachers to not only capture themselves, but also to teach their students. And one of the characteristics of our profile is perseverance, and how students just need to persevere through difficult times, pre-COVID, during COVID. And our business and industry partnerships tell us very often that it's not necessarily what they'll remember about what they learn, but how they learn and how they communicate. So we are increasing our digital citizenship opportunities for students to learn how to be a professional and how to be a leader online. As we all know, those things are permanent and stay. And kids are coming in with amazing skills in Snapchat and and how do we transition those things to real life and a career. So we have been for many years incorporating that, and we're being much more intentional about moving that forward, not just growth mindset, but those attributes that we and industry and colleges want out of a student.
Tony, thank you. And Darcy, same question, that sort of balance between developing skills for the workforce and then developing those life skills like having a growth mindset and mindfulness.
Well, I think the shift to skills, to be quite honest, is part of that change to a growth mindset. And, you know, a lot of words are used to describe kind of the growth mindset, which is super important, but we're also looking at human-centric designs. And so what it amounts to is we as sort of organizations and entities, I think, have to be very careful to make sure that we're understanding each individual student, each individual potential employee, and really finding ways to meet them where they are, and then giving them those opportunities to jump back in and out of the educational pipeline, so to speak, or degree tracks, but at the same time, enabling them to take with them some kind of award that says, I know how to do these things, and then present to them in some very clear way what they could do if they learned another set of skills. And so making those career trajectories very transparent to them. And while I think that the future of work is around specific skills, not all sectors are there yet. And so we have to be mindful that some very much fall into the traditional, we're accepting this degree, this thing, and then some value to work experience. We have to help move the employer community toward more of that skill focus, so that we can then educate the individuals that are students with our organizations in those skills and show them the path toward employment. And that really requires a high degree of connectivity between employers and us and our students.
Absolutely. Julie, some final thoughts?
You know, I think, you know, when you deal with the workforce of today and what we're all dealing with, I think about the impact it is on the high schoolers, you know, Tony's group of people, you know, those students, and they see what their parents are going through, and they may have had an idea of what is it that they wanted to do and how they were going to get there. But then they see about their parents and all the things that they're dealing with, and we can't forget about that group as well. And you know, it's the whole workforce has shifted. How we learn has shifted. What we need to do has shifted. And I don't think we're ever going to go back, even when it gets to some point where people are coming back into an actual brick and mortar facility. I'm not sure how many people are actually going to come back. So I think, you know, what we do and how we train people and get everybody ready for the new tomorrow is all of our jobs. And it's all of our passion, obviously, by listening to everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. Mary, some closing thoughts here?
I mean, I just want to echo what everyone else has said, is that, you know, today is tomorrow, the jobs of tomorrow, we don't even know what they are, right? And so we need to start understanding now what are the skills that are going to get us there. But also we need to help people understand that learning is going to be lifelong. That is not going to be you get a degree, you have a job. You're going to have to really understand how to constantly create plans for yourself to keep yourself competitive into the future. And then we as a community need to do a much better job of understanding the careers that are phasing out and what are the skills that those people have that can be transferred and translated to a new career, and what is that little bit of gap that we can help them with to get them the training that they need so they can more easily make that transition. Because we are failing people if we tell them they get an education, they go on a career pathway, and then we just leave them forever.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mary. Thank you to all the panelists.